Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-host, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain. That is Kenny Simpson. We're joined today by Coach Mario Price. Coach, how are things with you today?
Fantastic, man. I'm excited about being on with you guys. I know we've been planning to do this for a while, so happy to finally lock this thing in.
Yeah, when Kenny hit it was with the group text, and I was like, oh, we tried this last year, a full year ago. I was like, well, I know people get busy. We miss people all the time. So
Yeah. I know how hard it can be. That's right.
So, Coach, just real quick, why don't you just tell us kind of where you are, what you're doing, your elevator speech of how you got into the coaching and where you are.
Yeah, so I am the Director of Coaching Education at the American Football Coaches Association. Been here for 7 years. Prior to that, I spent a little over a decade in the coaching profession. Started off here in Texas, where the AFCA is located, and played my high school ball here. Ended up going to play football up at West Point straight out of high school. Enjoyed my time there, but my head coach was let go. He becomes kind of important in the story, I guess, a little bit. My head coach was let go, and I transferred out. I transferred to Baylor, which is once again here in Waco. After my time, playing college ball, I stuck around the area, coached high school ball here in Waco for about 3 years, and decided I wanted to get in the college profession. And so from that point, reached out to my former coach, who had been let go once again at Baylor. Not the same guy. And he was the head coach of Texas A&M Commerce. Reached out to him, let him know I want to be in the profession. He hired me as his receivers coach for 2 years. I did that, and then went over to Millsaps College over in Jackson, Mississippi. Coached a little D3 ball for a little bit, and then reunited with my original coach from Army, who's the head coach at the University of Louisiana Monroe. I went and coached receivers for him, ended up doing special teams and recruiting coordinator for him after 4 or 5 years. And then once again, our whole staff was let go. At that point, he came and took over the American Football Coaches Association. Todd Berry, he was the executive director. Upon us getting fired, I went out to North Carolina, coached at Davidson College. He gave me a shout, said, "Hey man, you want to not worry about getting fired all the time and make some consistent money and not be flying all over the country." And at the time, my wife was pregnant. It was appetizing and kind of enticing a little bit. And I took a shot with it, man. And I've been here for 7 years now, and it's been a blast. Kind of taking my experience and finding ways to help the AFCA elevate from an educational standpoint.
It's a lot easier than trusting a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds with your future, isn't it?
That's right.
That's I understand. Like I've got the coaching bug, and I can't imagine right now not coaching. But I know at some point, like there's going to be that thing that is just pays so much better, especially with you getting to stick it in. You're in the sport, you still get to do it. Like, I don't know, but
yeah,
now I still got to have it every year. So
that was a big struggle for me early on. I'm if you know me at all, man, I'm a ball dude. Like I'm drawing plays on napkins at dinner. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna find a way to talk ball, and I never picture myself outside of the profession. But to your point, to be able to be close enough, I think it scratches the itch just enough. And I did a couple things outside of this day job a little bit to kind of keep me around some young people and keep me keep a whistle around my neck, I guess.
That's awesome, Coach Simpson. Man, your clinic season's absolutely banging through. Are you 3 down now? Have you done 3?
3 down, 6 to go. 3 down, 6 to go. So we did one right before AFCA. I always do one right because my wife and I like going to the clinic, and that's why we kind of met Coach and we connected that way. But so we're always going to go to AFCA. So we did one in Charlotte, and it looks like we're going to do one in Charlotte again next year because we're going to be back in Charlotte. But
that's right.
And then we just did the national one last week. So that was cool. I miscounted. There were 17 different states. So let me tell you some of the states that flew into Arkansas to come hear some yokel like me talk. Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, California. I mean, it was craziness. So it's really, really cool to kind of get to connect and every year we go to coaches clinic and AFCA, we kind of meet friends. We only see them once a year, but it's really cool to kind of do that. I know we're going to talk about that clinic season here, this whole episode, but the guys that are blessed to do stuff like that, it's really cool to connect with them. Anyway, we got 6 more of them coming up, so I'm trying to pace myself because I'm starting to get a little tired.
I understand. This is the first year since I've met you that I've missed the national, so I'm glad that I'm going to another one. It seems like every year it falls under a weekend, and last year I was like, well, I'm just not going to be able to make it. I got to go to this other thing, and so, but now I'm in a little bit more of a responsibility, like a higher ranking spot, and I gotta go play Army. So I'm glad it was a good time. I'm glad I get to go meet up at Boston and Milwaukee and have some fun there because I missed it. Even that overpriced bourbon at the steakhouse. It's still part of it.
Is. It's part of it.
So. All right, guys. Well, Coach Price, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for coming talking some ball. We're going to real quick do our ads, and then we'll kind of get out of here. So Coach Simpson, if you don't mind, tell us some ways we can simplify football for our staff and for our players.
What's up, coaches? I want to talk to you for just a few moments about your program. The longer I'm in this profession, the more I understand that efficiency is truly the name of the game. We're talking offense, defense, doesn't matter, right? Eventually, you're going to come down to checking out your efficiency. So I have to ask you, are you doing everything in your program the most efficient way, right? Are you fundraising the most efficient way? Are you representing your players and your program to the public in the best way? Are you planning to build the facilities the most efficient way? If you answered no to any of those, or really even if you answered yes to all of them, and you haven't contacted Mark Bridges at Ace Sports, you're missing a key step. So look, Mark and his team, they are the go-to group for video board and scoreboard installations for your school. They're not just football either. Mark can help you mock up your newest video board for that new stadium, or maybe even your old stadium, right? That's where Mark and the guys come in. And we're not just buying a flashy thing, right? Yes, it's nice. It's pretty neat to have that big scoreboard, that big video board, but you're also, you're investing back into that program. You're investing into that newest fundraiser. Sure, you can keep selling your discount cards, your beef jerky, hosting pie auctions, whatever it is that you like to do. But let's just be honest with ourselves, guys. We're not making enough money for those big ticket items. For the big ticket items like turf, an indoor facility, that's where you need a big ticket item fundraiser. That's what Ace Sports is offering you today. Guys, I've talked to Mark several times now, right? And it always comes down to big school, small school. Right? Well, of course, the big schools can afford that new video board, but the small schools really can't. It's just not true anymore, man. Your school isn't too small, and I promise. Okay, 1A, 2A schools, it doesn't matter. Mark and the guys, they're helping them out. Contact Mark today at mark.bridges@acesports.com and let him come give you a quote. Let him show you and your administration the plan. Now, really, it's the cheat code, right? Let him show you the cheat code that is fundraising with Ace Sports video boards. Tell him Daniel sent you. This episode is brought to you by Athletic Speed and Movement. At athleticspeedmovement.com, we've taken Del Basquet's 45 years of speed and movement training and put it all in one place just for you. You can get the same training that NFL players have been getting for years, collegiate players have been getting for years, and now high schools across the nation are paying thousands of dollars to bring Dell in to install his system, but we've got it online for you. It's time to help your team become faster, not just in the 40, not just their sprint speed, but between the tackles and their cuts while they're chasing down the quarterback. It's time for you to help them become faster everywhere. Jump over to athleticspeedmovement.com. There's an orange button there. Just click it. It says, get the keys to playing faster. You'll get the 3 core movement video from Dell. He's explaining the science behind it, all for just the price of your email. Check it out, athleticspeedmovement.com.
Coaching 101 podcast is sponsored by Findaway Productions. Findaway Productions also sponsors fbcoachsimpson.com for all your coaching needs, with over 30 coaching materials, books, as well as 50 PowerPoints and videos and smaller materials and the free magazine headsets. Findaway Productions also sponsors offensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things offense, and defensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things defense.
All right, appreciate that, Coach. We talked about clinics just a little bit there. Which ones have you got left? So we're looking after the 17th or 18th here when this episode comes out. Which clinics can people still see?
Yeah, we got end of February, we got Alabama coming up on the 21st, 22nd, and then we have Ohio coming up. That one's starting to fill up, so that one may be full by the time this comes out. But right now, that one's filling up pretty well. And then Washington, I'm heading to Washington State to do one, which is cool. And then we're going to do the 2 you're going to be at in April. So we have Boston, first part of April, and then Milwaukee, the last clinic we're going to do this off season. So a lot of fun doing these things. And if you guys are listening and want to come, they're all over at the website, fbcoachsimpson.com.
Awesome. And Kenny's got a great setup there. If you're going to go, his mom has already set up the travel agent version of mom, not just Kenny's mom, but has set up the cheaply priced hotels, and all of that's on the website. So go check it out and find an easy way to travel, what airport to fly into, all that stuff. And then you said you got a book coming out pretty soon, right, Coach?
Yeah, I got a new book. It's out now. So it came out February 5th, called The Play Caller's Guide. Really, really excited about it. It was, I do a lot of gun tee and 3-4 stuff, and I love doing that because that's what we run. But I like doing things that will apply to everybody. A coach that's coaching collegiately or high school-wise or wherever level they're coaching can read it and it will apply to them. This one walks through like how to build your offense. How are you setting your script? How are you breaking down the opponent? And then in game, how are you making adjustments? And so really, really fun book to put out. It's called The Play Caller's Guide. It's over at my website or on Amazon, whatever way you want to get your book.
Awesome. That's great. The 6.0 has already been out for a while. If you guys haven't picked that up, great time to do that. Just order the whole package of the book. Get the whole gun tee system. It's great. And then don't forget, Headsets Magazine is coming out just about every month now, right here for the first 6. If you're wanting to write articles for those, hit up Kenny or Jamie or myself, and we'll all point you in the same direction to be able to become an author for the Headsets Magazine. But it is going to be coming out every month. It's once again, a great resource. It's a great way to learn what other coaches are doing, how they're doing it. So jump in there. Let's get some questions, guys. Question 1 here is just how are coaches learning in the off season? So we want to talk clinics, and we know that you both are big time managers of clinics. So I'm excited to kind of hear how you're seeing guys utilize those to learn ball. Coach Price, let's just start with you, man.
Yeah, man, I think it's become a little bit of part of, at least at the collegiate level, it's become a little bit, become a little bit kind of a part of the whole professional development to come and visit the AFCA wherever we are located every year. Most coaches at the collegiate level do their best to attend. I know the high school thing is a little bit more difficult with the timing, sometimes the location, things like that. But, that's always a big start for everybody. Now, if you've been there, which both of you guys have been there before, it's a little bit more networking at times than it is actually education. But, I'm always pleased with the amount of coaches that show up, willing to learn and, take a few notes from some other guys and, continue to broaden themselves and, pour into themselves. Then after our convention, I mean, it's a plethora of guys that are kind of like Kenny that are, developing their own little clinics and, finding a good niche in the game. And, as a director of education, man, I absolutely love that. I think it's always a great time to learn. Honestly, a pet peeve of mine in this industry is guys who call themselves gurus and experts and things like that. Man, if you stay green, you always grow. The minute that you become ripe, you're not far from being rotten. And, I had a coach tell me that when I was a young guy. And, I've always believed that, it's always ways to get better in this profession. You have clinics like Glazier who, do tons of mini clinics all over the country, things like that. And, thinking back to myself when I was in the profession, obviously I always went to the AFCA, had the opportunity to speak at a few of the Glazier type clinics. And then more than anything, I used to love just, getting in the car, hopping on the plane, visiting the staff, spinning a fly on the wall while coaches doing individual or, while the staff's having a staff meeting, just trying to find ways to sharpen my tools any way possible. So, education, should be year round, to be brutally honest with you. If you're really good, if you're trying to be really good at your job, it can be in season. It can be, going through cut ups. It can be all the time. But, as far as structured education, man, as soon as that season ends, man, it's information everywhere. 2025, we're 25 right now. Yeah, 2025, man. You hop on Twitter, guys are chatting. Hop on YouTube, man. You can find anything that you want. It's more than enough education out there. So if you're not getting better, man, it's on you, to be honest.
Yeah, you're right with the old. You talked earlier about drawing plays on napkins. Like that is Twitter right now, right? It's Coach Dan Casey's doing a great job of just putting stuff together. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there do that. That's the one that always seems to pop up on my feed is him sharing. It's like that guy shares 200 football plays a day, but that's how life is now. We get to enjoy football year round as a coach, and I hope people are enjoying it. Coach Simpson, let's jump over to same question to you. Just kind of how are you seeing coaches do the best learning in the off season?
Yeah, and I think one of the questions we're going to talk about the difference of clinics and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's so much, like Coach mentioned, if you're not learning, it's on you because there's so much out there that's free. So if you can't leave your couch, you have online clinics now starting up where you can just watch something online and get something. You've got obviously huge, massive mega clinics like coaches that he puts on AFCA, and then you mentioned Glazier, and there's multiple of these other regional type clinics you can go to. And I think that probably the way it's going to move is more towards specific topics. So you can, if I want to go learn the forefront defense, where I can go dive into this. But he mentioned, I mean, there's YouTube, there's Twitter, there's free resources. I think at this point, the danger is not what's out there; it's the quality of what's out there. So it is almost you have to be able to filter through, just like everything else. Where there used to not be a lot of information out there, now there's a ton of information out there, and you as a coach have to filter through not only what's good and what's not good. And that's the first question. What fits us and what doesn't fit us is the other question, because you can't run all of it. So you got to kind of figure out, one, is this really good? And then two, I know it's good, but can we do it? Does it fit us? And so I think that's kind of where you are. But Coach mentioned there's AFCA, you have specific clinics. I like him talking about visiting staffs. I think it's really important to find a school, same demographic as you, same problems you're facing, and either go take them out or go watch them. Go watch them practice. There's a lot of opportunities there. It's cool to go watch Ohio State practice. I got to do that. One year we had a clinic in Ohio. Super cool to go watch them go through a practice. No offense, that's not going to help me. I don't have those dudes. So it'd be more beneficial for me to go watch a guy in a high school run a practice with 50 kids like I'm dealing with and kind of see what they do. So visiting people, and then big thing for me is this is the first year we've had kids that are recruitable. Like we've not really had that before, and I suck at that part of the game. So it was important for me to go to like AFCA to meet college coaches because it's all about the connections. Like there's so many kids trying to go play college football. There's so many college football coaches trying to find kids. If you're a high school coach and you aren't intentional in those connections, that's a problem. We had two of ours get offered this year. First, now I had three kids get offers in the last 2 years, 3 years, that never happened without connections made either through AFCA or other areas where you can connect. So if you're a high school coach, that's another thing you got to kind of think about is, am I building those connections that can further either my own career or my players' career? And then your young coaches, it's always about who you know to get a job. I'm old enough now, I don't care anymore. I think Mario don't care anymore. But if you're a young guy, hey, those are important for you to make those connections because you never know what guy's going to end up where or how that's going to play out. Hearing his story at the beginning, especially when we coach college football, it's all about connections. And the more connections you have, the better chance you have of getting a job.
Yeah, the AFCA seems really neat to me just because of that. It's like you get to take a vacation once a year and just go hang out with all your best friends. You know what I mean? Like we're too busy. Kenny and I get on the podcast once a week, but I can't go see him in person. We're too busy in our lives. Joe's the same way. There's a bunch of guys that I work with in football that some of them are just an hour and a half away. And if we don't prioritize it, we can't see each other. So having an event like AFCA or whatever, it's nice to be able to use it for that too. We're going to go learn together, but we get to kind of catch up as well. Let's jump into part two here then. What parts of that kind of helps guys learn the most? Kenny, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, man, I'm a big fan of, I don't want to steal Coach's thunder. I'm sure you're going to talk about what they do, but anytime you're watching drills and actual coach working with a kid, like I think that's the most valuable thing you can get at any clinic is how is this actually done? I can get on a whiteboard and talk X's and O's, and I can get a book and read that. I can do that at home. But watching a coach work with players. So we try to do that in all the gun T things. I know they do a huge skills and drills deal at AFCA. I think to me, that's the most valuable thing you'll ever see is how does a coach actually do this? How do you actually install it? I say all the time, because people ask, well, coach, you got all your stuff put out. Are you worried about people, beating you? Well, I can have all the ingredients of the finest meal ever cooked, but I suck as a chef. It's not going to matter. I got to know how it all goes together and how it all works. And so I think that's a huge part of all clinics. Kind of already mentioned, the connecting, the relationships that you build, because now I can text a guy a question. It shocked me the first few times I had collegiate coaches reaching out to me to learn a buck sweep, because I'm a high school coach. But the connections you build and you start to recognize we're all in this together. It don't really matter if you coach college, high school, youth. Really, we're all trying to learn from each other. And as long as you're humble enough to know that, hey, I'll learn from anybody and I can help anybody that wants help. So those connections, I think, are big. And then I'm a big fan of like what I call real situations. Like I think AFCA had the best session I think they had this year. This coach got up there. I can't remember which college he was with. It was a big college. And he walked through the first half of film. What play he called, why he called that play, why that play didn't work, what he was going to do if a different situation approach. I was like, man, this is real. Like you're watching a guy walk through a real game and a real situation and the real issues he was facing. I thought that was by far the best session at AFCA this year. So anytime you get a coach that's willing to, open the door and let you behind the scenes to kind of know, here's what we did, and I wish I could have done this different, or I wish this had happened, or here's why we did this. I think those are the best ways to learn.
That's a really good point. And that's kind of what I envision when I watch these quarterback greats go into the booth. And I'm looking a little bit different here, but NFL, we're at Tom Brady in the booth right now. I want him breaking down football as an old football dude, right? Like that's what us coaches are really interested in. So that's neat that there was a clinic like that. Coach Bryce, kind of what parts do you see that coaches tend to flock to, that they learn the most? Are you watching certain drills show up in game film anytime, or are people?
Yeah,
just
you know
going
what?
back?
Yeah, I kind of have an interesting perspective, I guess, kind of sitting in this seat where, when we put this convention on, we have over 110 some odd sessions within 2 days. We got 7,000 people there to 9,000, kind of depend on location in the year. And so, that's one of the things I really had to learn stepping into this role, because just like Kenny said, it was Rhett Lashley was the guy at SMU who kind of rolled through the film. We had somebody do that a couple of years ago, and everybody loved it. But just as I talked to Coach here, he loved that session. I talked to somebody else, and they'll say, "Man, Charles Huff breaking down how he builds character." Yeah, like maybe for you guys, when you're very confident in what you built within your program and from a character standpoint, it doesn't apply. But just the reality of it is, so many people, man. Everybody kind of has a niche of what they're looking for once they go there. And so when I approach it, obviously it's not I'm programming. I'm saying, man, I need a D3 guy that runs the triple option. I need a D2 guy that's old, that knows the wishbone. Those are kind of thoughts that are going through my head, because it's just such a wide variety of coaches, and you start thinking about just I'm in Texas, the Texas map. I mean, you got schools up in DFW that operate like a college football program. You got schools in West Texas that got 22 kids, and they barely get a break, and so just making sure I have a ton of variety. One of the things Coach Simpson kind of mentioned was when I was a coach and I used to sit in the bus sessions where it was a positional type of topic at the AFCA. And you'll got to get up on the whiteboard and he'll kind of talk about his drills and how he handles his classroom, how buzzwords with his kids, all that kind of stuff. I was like, man, this would be pretty dope if it was on a football field and like we could actually see it. And so, not knowing I'd ever in a million years be working at the AFCA, but ultimately I ended up working here. I'm like, hey man, this is something that I'd always thought about, and props to our staff. We ended up, kind of been able to get with Field Turf to get some turf, and some of the local colleges to provide some kids, and just really getting out on the turf. I mean, that's one place where I don't care what time of the day it is. It's going to be a group of guys standing around the field, our skills and drill session, and just watching coaches coach in their element. That's definitely one of my favorite personally as a coach. Like Coach Simpson said, it's it's just a lot more organic. It's a lot more real. It's a lot more easier for you to digest as a coach to see how you could maybe apply some of the things that you see there. So that's personally one of my favorite sessions. But once again, I go ask 7,000 of those guys what their favorite session is. Man, it can vary, and so it makes my job unique.
I think the skills and drills is neat because there are coaches that get stage fright. There's coaches that aren't technically or savvy. They can't go up and run a computer and make that stuff. They got
Yeah,
football knowledge for years
right,
upstairs, but they can't put that on a. How do you build a presentation, right? So it opens it back up to these guys who aren't that side of the house.
right.
They don't have to get on a stage in the bright lights and talk to people like it's a daggum classroom, right? Hey,
Yeah,
let's go out and put it where we're comfortable. We all have coached on the football field.
right.
Let's just go there. Let's go coach on the football field. And now we just know people are watching. I think that's a really neat way to let more people get into clinics. Um, Kenny, it's time to get some turf there at Southside. I think that main auditorium, it can hold a turf field right there. We let some more coaches get in. But
Well, I mean, at our gun tee, that's why we do. That's the favorite part of the whole clinic for most coaches. But the coach said everybody's different. I think that getting on the field is the best way to do it. And most of our people that come, they really enjoy watching us install something and go through it. But like Coach said, I mean, people learn differently, and I think that's the whole point of this podcast, whole point of his clinic, whole point of our clinic is we're trying to reach people on different levels that have different needs. I always do the national clinic is the only one I do it. I do a head coaching 101. It has nothing to do with gun T, but it's all to do with how we built what we built. How we went from 0-10 to, we're in the state semifinals last year because I don't know what situation some of these coaches are in. And so we talk about raising money and we talk about building culture, like Coach said, and we talk about building a staff, things that I think are important. And some coaches are, here's what I've learned, and I'm curious to hear what Mario thinks of this. I think more coaches need that, but less coaches think they need that.
Oh yeah, yeah. That can be said enough, man. One of the things I run into as I put the convention together, it's a group of guys, and I'm definitely not talking negative. We're talking about 7,000 to 8,000 people, right? Oh man, I didn't go to any of the sessions. You need to let me speak. I'll let everybody know what's up, and it's just like, dude, you show me that you don't value the education. You know what I'm saying? You're kind of giving me the guru vibes a little bit. And yeah, you probably, most of these coaches are well equipped to come and talk about what they know and what they're good at. But that's not what it's always about. It's always, it should be about you exploring your weak points and knowing what your weak points are. And it's tough as a bunch of, it's probably the most ego kind of profession that there is. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but we all play sports to a certain extent. We all want to kick somebody's butt at the end of every week, right? One of the things that we don't do a great job is probably self-eval and saying, hey, you know what? I'm not very good at this. Hey, you know what? We lack in this department. But you know what? When you kind of time the last two questions, and Kenny said something pretty cool. When I was at University of Louisiana Monroe with Todd Berry, who ended up being the executive director here, and Craig Bowl, just for clarity, is our current executive director now. When we would go on the road, he would task us all to come back, and we'd always have to bring back something that we learned from one of the high school coaches. So, if I'm at Coach Simpson's school, I'd come and say, man, hey, I know you talk buck sweep, bro. Like, we getting empty a ton. How would you implement the buck sweep in some of these formations or sets that we get into, and then let him talk? Because I like Coach Simpson said it best. When I was at ULM, I was a lot closer to his high school situation than I was to Alabama's. Like, right. So it didn't do us any good to be able to run power on 3rd and 1. Like, we had to get creative. We didn't have the same type of kids. And man, high school coaches are the best coaches in the country at being creative, taking what they have, and sometimes taking lemons and making lemonade. So that's just another opportunity I would take to go and educate myself. And then number two, high school coaches, man, are just phenomenal. Just being able to adapt repeatedly and still be successful.
Yeah, one thing it's hard to do because I know how Mario is in my own clinic, so I'm starting to have guest speakers, and so it's hard to throw a dude up there that went 5-5. Like, it's hard to do that because whether we want to say it or not, we judge success based on your record. And that's just kind of how it is. But I would think some of the best sessions you're going to get is how some dude who should have been 0-10 went 5-5. Like that to me, that guy is probably going to be the best dude to learn from. But it's hard. I know Mario's probably getting hit up by thousands of people. How's he going to stick a dude up there that went 5-5? Same thing with me. I'm getting guys that want to speak at our clinics. I want to let them speak. And so I had a guy at Boston. I think you're going to get to hear him. I think they went 4-6 this year, Daniel. But man, his stuff was great. Man, his stuff was great in the gun tee, and I'm taking a chance because I think I can learn from him, and everybody else can learn from him. So if you're a guy listening to this, and I think that's the hardest thing, and Mario kind of hit it, is we get judged based on our record, but we're not all in the same situation, and we got to recognize that.
That's and even you talk about a guy that was supposed to go 0-10. There's no coach that's going to admit they were supposed to go 0-10. You know what I mean? Because when you got to go look those kids in the eye and tell them that they're supposed to go 0-10. No, not a chance, right? We all think that we should at least be district champs. So it's hard to find those guys to come have them, let them come speak, because none of us are going to admit that. We're absolutely the worst team out there. But we squeaked out 5 wins. That's just really hard. So kudos to you guys. I hate that. That's part of the game, is where we have to judge quarterbacks and head coaches on wins and losses, because all of our situations are different. I mean, you talked about, and it's, I guess you try to think about like D1, you get up into those super conferences, and any of those guys should be able to go run the table, but realistically they can't.
And Mario also hit on, he said, I'm going to kind of get back on this one too. I work a lot of consulting with college coaches, but a lot of it is basically don't let anyone know. Because like he said, if they found out some random Yahoo high school coach was helping several of these schools, I think they're nervous about it. And I think that's a stigma that we need to get rid of. I believe, and I think AFCA does a good job with that. I sat down with multiple coaches and was able to work with them, and it was really, really cool. And I've sat down with multiple coaches that I sat out to go learn from. And I think that's kind of the idea. In my mind, we do clinics, but the idea here is, how can I learn from somebody else? And I think that's, even though I'm giving clinics, we're giving 9 of them, and so obviously we know what we're doing. But man, if I can learn something from somebody else, I think it was very powerful to watch these high-profile coaches go sit in on a session, and I would do the same thing. I want to go listen to somebody and be fed.
Yeah, this is definitely the time for information's trickling up and down. You've got guys at our level that are trying, they're reaching to that more collegiate NFL style stuff, and then football's, it's trickling up, right? You talked about the Gus Malzahn's, those kind of guys that keep getting these big high profile jobs, and I mean they are high school coaches. So the world it's in a good place for football coaches right now.
Yeah, I was gonna add too, like, one of the things that we added this is our second convention doing it, was a free form breakout. That's what they're called on paper. Most people probably don't even get what's called that, but ultimately after we get done with all of the programming that hopefully I strategically try to put together. And I mean, I got coaches that are fired. I got coaches that went over. Man, you were a good coach last year when y'all were 7-3. You're still a good coach. I mean, we all have our bad breaks. So I'm a firm believer in, I on the main stage, on that big stage inside the general sessions, I typically got to put those guys that are having this success. But in some of those other rooms, man, it's a lot more leniency for me. But the freeform breakout sessions are basically, we open up about 15 to 20 rooms and just say, hey, you guys go in there and talk ball. You got a whiteboard. You got everything that you need in there. We'll send drinks in there. You want food, we'll get some food in there for you. And, if Kenny wants to go grab a room and talk Buck Sweep with a bunch of guys because they've been asking about them, y'all can go talk Buck Sweep because maybe my programming didn't fit that. And that was probably one of the coolest things for me to see the first year whenever something's new at an event like this, especially coaches are so like, running on the same type of schedule. It's hard to implement new stuff. But this second year, man, every room was full, and people were talking about what they wanted to talk about. I had to do the best job I can in those 110 sessions to make sure I cover everything. But some stuff isn't covered, or some stuff needs to go into more depth. And man, that was really cool to see, because to your point, man, it's just a transfer of knowledge. And it doesn't have to be some guy standing in front of the room beating his chest saying, I know this better than you. It can be us sitting in a room at a table looking each other eye to eye saying, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. How can you help me? And here's how I can help you.
Yeah, I love it. Let's jump into this last part here, gentlemen, and that's just kind of where do we see clinics going from here, or coach education. I think we need to stick to clinics mainly, but we've already talked about Twitter and YouTube, and those things are out there. So where do we see this going? And Coach Price, we'll start with you on this one.
From my standpoint, the convention's been going since 1933 or something like that. And it's obviously changed shape and form over that time period in regards to, it used to be a lot more like head ball coaches only, very elite level, and it's kind of transformed to, a lot more lower divisional levels and a lot more high school guys and a lot more people in general. But as college football and high school football for that matter, because these things kind of go hand in hand when we start talking about the recruiting process. I mean, I think timing and stuff changes. I think availability for coaches change. I think, guys like guys like Dan Casey, guys like Kenny, right here on the podcast that are being very, very creative with, you know, with their approach to the education. Right, man, I'm gonna send 100 tweets out a day of just cool videos, and that's gonna be. I mean, that's a clinic, man. Like I'm gonna tell you right now, I coached 6-man football this year, and I saw some Casey posted, and we actually ran in a 6-man, and kind of installed it, and then Kenny hits me up every year about hopping on a cruise. Like what a great opportunity to go and spend time with your family, have a vacation setting. But in those dead times, which we've all been on those vacations, we got a little dead time. You go, go sharpen your tool and get a little bit better with some of your friends in the profession. So, I see that just like probably every other industry out here, where the people are able, like no different than Uber and DoorDash, where just your average Joe can come in now and deliver food and make some money. I see a lot of individuals coming in and continue to kind of revolutionize the space. Whether it's taking advantage of X, being able to post videos there, taking advantage of YouTube and all these different things. I just think people are going to continue to be creative, and I think it's going to be harder and harder, unfortunately, for people to get together, for us to all be in one place, and that hurts a big outfit like ourselves. But we got to continue to kind of adjust to the profession, adjust to the schedule, adjust to the recruiting calendar, adjust to all the crazy rules that's coming, and continue to find a place for us to look each other eye to eye, shake hands, sit in the same room, have a drink, talk ball, get on the whiteboard, do skills and drills. I think there's always a place for that, but there's also a place for the creativity that's kind of emerging.
Yeah, the get in front of people and do things in person. Look, I'm on 3 podcasts, and they're all virtual. They're all like this. What we're doing now, sitting in our own room at our own house, business. I went on a friend's podcast last week, and I had to go to a studio and sit in a room with 2 guys and talk about the military. There's nothing like it. That is the ultimate setting for podcasting, for football, for whatever. I think there will always be a place for that. But I sure am glad on a Tuesday afternoon when I'm bored that I can jump on YouTube and learn button sweep from Kenny, or I can learn the 4-2-5 defense from Joe, or whatever. I can jump out and learn some of these things quickly and on my time. Do you feel like the AFCA has become more of a social hub versus a clinic because of that? Because the information's always accessible, and so that's just a time people can see each other?
You know what? I look at that 2 ways. There's no doubt it's a social hub. I mean, I remember being young in the profession and would watch some of the older guys on our staff go into the convention and not go into one educational session. That's a little bit of the always stay growing part, and that's also a little bit of some of those guys, they know what they need to know, and they still came back and learned something because they went into a room, somebody's hotel room, and drew plays on a mirror with the grease marker. I definitely think it's definitely a big part of the social hub. But I go check rooms and they're packed. I mean, I'm not saying every session's absolutely filled, but it's still butts and seats. So there's still an appetite. There's still a group of coaches out there that are there to learn. I mean, the big part of it is when you see all these guys walking through, they're not as decorated as you guys. There's some guys that's walking there, it's their second year in the profession, didn't play college ball. That this is important for them. They have to learn to get a receiver in the stands because they just taken a job and they've never coached receivers before. So the good thing is, as long as time continues to pass, we're going to continue to get new coaches. They're going to continue to need the education, and we just got to be here to continue to provide it, and always be willing to look at the other perspective, not just our highly educated ones that we've been in a profession for a long time.
I love it. Coach Simpson, same to you. Kind of where do you see clinics going from here?
Well, I think Mario kind of hit a lot on it. Is what do you want? I think there are clinics that satisfy different needs, and I think that's the beautiful part of our profession. Is there's different things you need each year. I I mean, AFCA, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's if you want to connect with coaches and you want to have a variety, I think that's the clinic you go to. I mean, especially if you're a college level coach or have the desire to coach at that level, I think that's kind of their world. They have high school coaches there, and I meet with a lot of high school coaches there. But that's kind of that world where you're going to have the ability to connect and have such a variety to go to. Um, I think in-person clinics are not going anywhere. You guys hit the nail on the head. Most business deals are done over a bar or a golf match. And that's just kind of how the world works. You're not going to Zoom and get a great deal done. I mean, there's a place to do Zoom, a place to do online, and there's a need for it. But person to person is not going anywhere. And so I think those big clinics. AFCA falls in that. There's other clinics out there. They're not going anywhere. I think that it just depends on what you need. I also think you're going to start to see, like Coach mentioned, you're going to start to see these. You got startup clinics, and some of them are going to make it, some won't. But I think it's specifically tailored clinics. So, like for us, people come to the Gun T because they know they're going to get 10 hours of this specific offense. We're never going to be a big clinic. We don't want to be. Like, I don't want more than 150 guys because that's not the goal of what we're trying to do. Our goal is let's dive into this specific topic and get really good at it. I think you're going to see more of those probably pop up. Tony Franklin was doing them long before I was. They've been out forever. It's not like I'm new. The air raid guys are the same way. But these specific, scheme-wise clinics, I think there's a tremendous value in those. And clearly that's one of the things I kind of major in. So I think those are going to be big. And then there is a place for online. COVID showed us that there is a place to do these online clinics because let's be honest, we're doing the Wings and Things one here. It's already been passed as this podcast comes out. I could never get these types of speakers in one place. A couple of years ago, I did the Huddle one. They asked me to speak for Huddle. I spoke between Mike McDaniel, so Mike McDaniel, then random Kenny Simpson, then another NFL coach. You never were going to get us all in the same place. Right. But you could do a Zoom clinic where we could all do something and produce what I hope was a pretty good, clinic for coaches. So all of these are going to be there. And then you got free because some coaches, Mario's in Texas, you're in Oklahoma, I'm in Arkansas. Most of our schools, for the most part, are relatively supportive. Then I go to some of these high schools where these dudes are paying out of pocket for everything they do. So you're going to have free resources for those types of people. And that could be YouTube, that could be Twitter, that could be online free clinic, that could be whatever it is. And I'm always going to have free resources. I know AFCA always has free resources for those types of guys because we want to help. And I think you're not going to see that stuff go away. I do think the ones that are good at doing a clinic will continue to rise up. AFC has been around for years. They're always good. We're hoping our clinics are going to be in that world, but you're always going to have the guys that, hey, let's throw together a clinic in Oklahoma with these local coaches. Those might be really, really good, and so you kind of have to pick, what you want. But I think that's the main thing, and hopefully this podcast, guys of God, is when you walk in a clinic, you need to have a goal. Like, is your goal to connect with people? Man, go do that. Is your goal to learn more about buck sweep or learn more about cover two or learn more about defensive line play? But I think a lot of times guys go in without a plan, and then they enjoy a little too much social time, and then they don't really get what they came out of it. And that's the last thing I'm going to say on this one. That's why we started that cruise clinic. Mario kind of brought it up. I'm trying to get him to come because it's Texas. But, the point of that clinic is very unique. It's there's some scheme stuff, but the main part of that entire clinic is hang out with your family. I guess that's the part of that clinic. Hang out with your family and connect with coaches. We had 14 different states represented on a cruise ship. So now they're all in group text. Our wives are in group text. You've got these connections that are built that are going to last a while. So I think it's important you kind of work on all that stuff.
Hopefully Mario comes back. I think what I see is my favorite parts is that just the kind of the hypothetical and the theoretical sessions in football, right? Like we can all go out and say, here's exactly what I did on film this year, and it's new to you, and maybe it's new to me. Maybe I tried it for the first time this year. Maybe I've been doing it for years. But if we can get the sessions I want to see are the guys that can just look at the audience and be like, hey, we're going to try this year, and I have no idea if it's going to work or not. We're going to go in and see if this play
Can we do it this? Because somebody tried the RPO the first time ever. Somebody tried zone read the first time ever, right? Like those things didn't exist, and then all of a sudden they did. So I want to see that type of stuff in clinics with that. Just where does ball go from here? Because it's already cyclical, so we already know it's going to come back around, and NFL's moving into the phone booth. So I'm interested to seeing those type of things, and then I wish Mario hadn't fell out. Hopefully he can get back in
He
here.
says his charger died. I'm telling him to go ahead and jump on back in, so hopefully we'll get him back.
Okay, cool. I'd like to see, I understand the value of AFCA being one weekend a year, but I almost wonder if it couldn't be 2 weekends a year. You know what I mean? Just to give people that can't make that first one, but it's so collegiately bound. I can see where it's at. Hey, I'm gonna let you take over here just a second. My new AD's calling me.
I'm gonna do a quote of the week. There you go. All right, guys. So quote of the week. This one comes out of Team Themes Volume number 3. So quote of the week comes out of Team Themes Volume number 3. I actually quoted myself on this one, so don't judge me too harshly. But every now and then I'll say something pretty good. So this one is something I tell our kids all the time, something I tell our coaches all the time, and something I tell my own children all the time. Here's the quote. It says, the difference between a child and an adult, I always say a man and a boy when I'm talking to my team, but child and an adult is that a child does what they want to do all the time, and that an adult does what has to be done. We talk a lot with our football team about that, kind of make them quote that back to us. But we're trying to say, we're going to do what needs to be done. And that's when you've kind of reached maturity, is when you go from doing what's fun and what you enjoy doing to doing what has to be done. So if you can do that kind of stuff, you've kind of reached maturity. Mario, I think we got you back in, man. You back?
Yeah, you got me back, man. Let me see if I can get myself situated here. My apologies, man.
Nah, no worries, man. So we got Mario back in, Daniel. We're good to roll. We're about done, so I think we're probably good.
Hey, that happens to all of us, man. Batteries run out in life, right?
Only we lost them again.
All right, Coach. Let's just get on with our what not to do as a coach section here, and then we'll start closing out.
Sure, no worries. So what not to do as a coach? I think the big thing, and Mario mentioned it, and hopefully we mentioned it in this one, is you want to make sure that you are always looking for ways to improve. I think so. What not to do as a coach, in my opinion, is think that you've arrived. That you're too big for whatever. I think sometimes the worst thing that can happen to a young coach is they're successful, at a young age. And when you're successful at a young age, you kind of feel like you've arrived or you know too much. Or I think the other thing you could throw into this one is not being willing to learn from somebody who you view as, and I'll put in quotation marks here, lesser than you. All of us, whether we're coaching NFL, college, high school, youth, whatever that might be, there's always something we can learn from somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach Price, we'll get you here before. Hopefully you're still around. We're going to go do our social media here. Kind of if somebody wanted to reach out and talk to you about AFCA or trying to schedule a clinic, what could we do? How could they get a hold of you there? Can you hear us, Coach?
I can hear you. You got me?
That's all right. Hey, we'll get all his stuff put in, guys. We'll share it in the show notes. Kenny is at all things FB Coach Simpson. You can fbcoachsimpson.com, fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com. Go check out all the Gun T stuff. I know Kenny doesn't pitch the Gun T stuff enough on here, but he should. You can find me at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter/X. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. Don't forget about the Patreon. Jump over there if you're looking to get better in whatever. Look, I'm super technical savvy, so I've got all the you want graphics, you want to learn how to edit videos and cut up your highlight reel this year. I can help you out with all that. The podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod on Twitter/X. We want to thank you for being a listener of the Coaching 101 podcast. We'll hope you'll join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.